The purpose of it?
Right there.
That's hilarious.
I read it twice today and I laughed out loud. All right, so for purposes of the audio recording, always put up minutes. As soon as we're done, we're not having to do it. Good, good, all right. So around the table, let's see where should I start. Jen, Anne, Brian, myself, this is Rainey, Sid, Linda, Eddie, Paul, Evan, and Deb, and Sarai. Special guest, Councilperson Star, and the other end. Because I can't remember the last name.
Well, it's all good.
Oh, thank you. We're not gonna be too sorry, I can't. All right, so we are missing a few folks this evening. Nina is on her way. And Vic will not be joining us, Kelly will not be joining us. So you get correct.
Oh, you got correct on. Okay.
You didn't know your computer, you didn't know. Let's start off with meeting minutes for approval. And what was sent out to us?
I think the second and the fifth are still outstanding.
You just sent one this evening, right?
I sent them both yesterday. I want to say yesterday evening. Shelley had one correction on the second, and the fifth I haven't gotten my notes back on, so.
Can I give you a couple?
You certainly can.
On
Which one?
okay, so this is the fifth.
Okay.
Page 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, fifth bullet point. There's reference to the board of elections, and it says state board of elections, but isn't it county board of elections that looks at the, here it says, ask if authority for verifying signatures should be in the hands of the clerk of council or state board of elections. Elections.
It's county, but.
It's-
All right, I'll change it. Point.
Yes, Franklin's going to do questions, so we need to specify Franklin County while we're at it.
I'll do that too.
Yes, we're not.
Right, I would say the county will be redistricted.
And then page 4, second bullet point, plural on members, pointing from 6 to 7 council members. And I noticed, thank you. I noticed that at times when we talk about days, 20 days is more important than 30, do we ever define, are these calendar days or business days, or is there a regular thing that is done in?
I don't know. I think we could that as an action item though, to talk about
Yeah.
in a larger group, so I mean, that's a problem.
I'm not talking about
Decided.
I'm not talking about the number of days, I don't care if you 2 days.
Right, you're saying, are they business days, are they calendar days, yeah.
Well, I think that point needs to be decided. I don't think it was decided. So that's my point. If that's your
There's
question.
multiple times when we've tried to figure out putting things on the ballot and this, that, and we don't know if it's, do we count these days, do we not count these days? And it's really confusing.
I don't think it was decided.
I don't know.
And those are the, I'm sorry, fifth or?
Yeah,
Any questions about meetings from the second, minutes from the second?
I move that we approve the minutes from just a second.
Second? I second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any abstains or opposed?
just try.
Alright, and
I move that we approve the meeting minutes of the fifth.
Second, I will email them to you.
Just with the correction.
Corrected, yeah.
Give me a second, so.
all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed or abstained? Alright. And y'all want? Alright. So before we dive into reviewing our draft or our memos, is there anything that anybody else wants to bring up to discuss?
You do action steps. And then things.
All right, so this is an update. We met on the 5th, for the minutes, talked through the next article, Article 10, had some updates to get Kelly. Kelly is not going to do any drafting this week. Call check on later, I'm sure she's conscious today, she's there. So we did not finish going through that article, and we did have other things that we wanted to talk about in the larger group. Anyways, so I feel like we need to make some progress there. Article 8, I believe, was still being drafted as well, unless we feel it's okay with this, but I believe it's fleshed out.
I seem to remember it needing work, but
But they're not.
we'll get there eventually. Seven, yeah, 7 and 8 both look like they need some work.
So we will leave that for now. 9 is also needed work, so what I would suggest we do is just plug away at 10, based on what we discussed Sunday. Try to make some decisions about the things we haven't decided on, and hopefully make it all through. Okay. Work for everyone? Yeah. Great.
You what?
I thought you were trying to see pictures. Never mind.
I'm speaking.
All right, so Article 10 of the Nuremberg Charter, Elections Initiative, Referendum and Recall. As per usual, our legal counsel has given us some questions that we are going to want to consider, as well as reference to some other charters or examples. Some of these are very boilerplate, we discovered, going through all of the different examples provided. They're pretty much all copied and pasted. Others are more discussionable. Just using the English language as I will this evening. So this section discusses, I'm just gonna read it. While the attached sample charters do not uniformly present election-related topics in the same manner or even always in the same sections, the next section of these municipal charters do generally address elections, proposing legislation by initiative, subjecting council legislation to referendum, and allowing voters to recall municipal elected officials. The first question that was written out for us was what procedures are required to nominate someone to run for an elected office in the village. We've already defined a lot of those under these sections for said office. So scroll down to the example, give a pretty long, just give you an idea what they have there.
I was wondering if we, are sort of having an unintentional, preference for the Walden because it's always been first. I mean, I know they're good, but I noticed that we always start with them when we look at them.
I've been trying to make sure we go through more than just them, even if we like them, just for that exact reason.
Yeah, I just want to hidden kind
Right.
of prejudice.
Or that's the screen.
Yeah, I know. I'm pulling something else up. I was gonna pull up the, last thing we got from that.
So basically, it was just saying, no primary election shall be held for the nomination of candidates for elected office. They all said that. We have to I don't know if that's even discussed.
I'm sorry, can you say that again?
Sure, no primary election shall be held for the nomination of candidates for elected office. Nominations for the elected offices of the village shall be made by petition signed by, here we go. Not less than 25, nor more than 75 electors of the village. There was some discussion about how many signatures we thought that should be. So that's a discussion point. Petition shall be in the form determined by the election officials of the state of Ohio for the nomination of nonpartisan candidates, in other words, who use the form that's already there. Group petitions shall not be permitted. Petitions shall be filed with the election officials of the state of Ohio as provided by the laws of the state of Ohio. So pretty boilerplate, or place, with the exception of that number. What's a group petition?
The group petition, meaning, so you could, if you allow group petitions, you could have one petition that lists 4 candidates or 3 candidates or 2 candidates.
Like a slate.
Like a slate, yeah.
Groveport breaks it out into a lot more sections, but basically says the same thing. Petition, no primaries. Nomination petition shall be in the form determined by the election authority provided by the state of Ohio. Same thing. Yes, ma'am.
This is true, isn't the number that you need currently, the number of people you need to sign your petition, isn't it 30 or 35?
We get, I don't know what the number is currently, but we get the name number.
The number currently is 10,
Oh,
with
it's
maximum, with
10.
maximum slate of 30.
That's it, that's what I'm getting, this 30 number.
The recommendation is that you get 30 signatures
Right.
in case 20, up to 20 of them are disallowed
Right,
for one reason or another.
right.
I can go into more detail of that, but it's probably not necessary.
10 was plenty. It took a really long time to get 10 signatures.
Really?
You should have gone to Brian's house one night. I moved in 4
should
times
have.
and you got 15.
Trouble parties.
Well, I had to do it twice too. The whole thing twice.
So do we think that's a good number?
25, is that the number?
That was the part in the minutes.
We already discussed all of this
We did
on
already.
Sunday.
We said we would do it in a larger group.
I know, we said we would bring up certain salient points in the larger group. I don't feel like we need to go through all of Article 10 again.
Okay.
Which is what it seems like we're doing.
So what are the salient points?
She will bring them up. There were some points where we had some contentions, contested issues, and we felt that you specifically would want to weigh on a couple of them. So we set those aside so that we could deal with the larger forum.
Okay, there.
And we did
That's
discuss
right.
the 25, but pretty much left it at 25.
I think, yeah, I don't
That
think
we
anyone.
give our petitions to Brian. and he would
Well,
get it.
there's also some discussion of the 8% of the electors.
Oh, that's too soon.
Making this too complicated.
Yeah.
Maybe the more candidates we have, the better.
So you,
Make it easy.
so in my notes, we haven't picked the number. What are we?
Oh, well, I wanted fewer, but I'm fine with 25.
So if you have to, okay, so if you have to have 25,
You might have to-
hi guys, then you might have to have 50, that's exactly
That's why I
right.
said with 10. 10 is
So,
fine.
I don't know why we wouldn't leave it at, I mean, if you wanna add more, then make it
15.
15, everybody good with 15?
15 to
Yeah.
10.
Sure.
15.
Yay.
And up to what?
So lower ceiling is 15, we're on. Lower limit 15, upper,
Oh, that's
no
just
more
what
than
they-
75. Let's go, no, wait, it's not a requirement.
This is the way.
Yeah.
I don't care.
And also chocolate.
Okay.
Cadbury chocolate.
Oh, I love it.
From Ireland.
Yeah, the real, it's the real Cadbury. It's not the fake American
That's
Cadbury
where
with lots more sugar.
Okay, so there was word counts in C. Brian, do you remember what that was?
I believe it was in the recall petition,
Yes, I think it was.
and it was number,
100 was there.
was what we were copying from the questions we wanted along.
And
And
we-
we picked from another 1-200, just because 100's not.
And looked up
I
how
don't,
many
this is
words
one of the
were.
ones we thought you would have a problem.
I'm like, oh, I'm wrong with that.
Now, these were just ones we couldn't quite come to an agreement on.
It was when.
Even though we did come to an agreement, we did 200 was what we thought.
Yeah.
Right.
For we also did these station units is basically right now.
It's not.
We thought-
It's not enough.
Yeah.
It's not enough. So the next one was filing examination filing examination and amendment of the petition for recall. It's D of the only, so 1102 D.
D, there it is, okay.
So we had some concerns about the dates, specifically the petition. I'm sorry, not to be, this is supposed to make sense to start again. So no later than 30 days after the service of notice of intent on the clerk of council, the petition demanding removal of an elected official shall be filed with the clerk of council within 20 days after the day on which the petition is filed. The clerk of council shall determine, subject to verification from the board of elections, whether or not it meets the requirements of the section. If the clerk finds the petition insufficient, the clerk shall promptly certify the particulars in which the petition is insufficient, deliver a copy of the certificate to the person who filed the petition, and make a record of delivery. The petition may be amended within 10 days after the date of delivery. The clerk shall, within 5 days after such an amendment has been filed, re-examine the petition, and if still insufficient, the petition shall be rejected and no further action taken. There was some concern that 10 days was not long enough, and we might want to change that to 20. There was also concern, but this actually is the one we want to copy and paste and corrected it, that the clerk of council has to consult with board of elections to determine if it's sufficient. You can't make that decision on their own. Thoughts?
Well, so, you know, currently the way this is done for anything is our fiscal officer who handles that. She handles
Which is also clerk.
As for duty.
duty as clerk of council, exactly. And she is extremely knowledgeable, and I would trust her to be able to make this determination without talking to the board of elections. Others, like even me, I would be running to the board of elections to get the correct answers, because I wouldn't know. She does know, because it's her job, her experience, her education, and her training. So not everyone is going to, and so
You like that call out?
I like that call out. It will save us a lawsuit potentially.
Having the board of elections do it.
Having the board of elections do it may save the village a lawsuit.
The other thing we brought up was if we're recalling a member of council and the clerk of council reports to council, one would think that that could really put that person in
Awkward.
and so not doing that to that person.
Right.
So does anyone have any thoughts on the number of days for each of those things?
You know, in the minutes, it was, the commission also discussed the time, saying that 20 days was more appropriate than 30, but I thought you just said it was 10 instead of 10.
So the
We
minutes-
need to correct that, he said, knowledgeable.
So the petition may be amended within 10 days after the date of.
We decided that 20 was more realistic. Okay. Now, the only other call I have is I just noticed that the clerk shall within 5 days after such an amendment file re-examine the petition if it does not collapse. Subject to verification or whatever, for the board of elections, do we need to call that out again, or?
Yeah,
So we need to
call
that
that.
out again.
So are you required to notify council, clerk of council?
Your first step is always.
You can notify and say the candidate petition.
If
You have 30 days.
you go back up, before you can circulate the petition, you have to notify.
You have to notify. You can notify and provide the petition at the date, on the same day.
No,
No.
so you have to,
So service of the notice of intent on.
B. no, go B.
Oh, B, sorry. Yeah. Okay.
Petitions for the recall of the elected official may not be circulated, so the written notice of intent is served on the council.
But there's no days in this, it's just before, you could.
They have to have served at least 6 months into office. That's the only number that there is.
Okay, I got you, so, yeah, so I mean, you could give them notice on a Monday
Well,
and circulate a petition on a Tuesday.
right,
There is no.
there is an end limit on that, though, because no later than 30 days after the service of notice, you have to turn in a petition. So you can't have a petition on for 8 months.
Right,
Yeah.
which is reasonable.
Over there?
What's the possibility of all
Right.
and
we can do it normal.
yeah, depends if it's special elections. Depending on when it is how much it costs, right? Even if it's a special election, it depends on when that special election is. There are dates that are.
Actually, depends even more so on how many municipalities also have
Right,
elections going on.
at that.
Because you end up sharing the costs of the election amongst all of the municipalities.
I mean, it could be $1,000, it could be $10,000.
So if you go down to E, it talks about the recall election, a little bit about timing, they can't wait 2 years to put it on the ballot. They've got a time limit. How it's phrased, shall so-and-so be allowed to continue as this position. Shall cause notice of the recall election to be published on the same day of each week for 2 consecutive weeks in a newspaper of general circulation in the village. That was our other item of discussion. So we had talked about adding language that would notify voters of such thing. I think postcard was our favorite.
Yeah.
How do we post what? No, I'm not lost with the, I know that there's an election.
Oh, no.
There's an election to recall so-and-so.
Right.
So,
How do you post now? That's one thing, you have to post it somewhere, and can't use that. Well, do you see when you come in the door, the giant, that's it. And in other places in the park.
They're.
on there,
Right.
there's no.
The thought was that's not sufficient to really notify everybody. You actually have to get a piece of mail in front of everybody, is what we were discussing.
Right, so we all agree like this. Check. All right, initiative and referendum.
Sorry, I'm sure it's a difference between what's up there and what's in your notes, but if we go up, last memo, 2 sections, I think it was, it actually said the number of signatures on the recall petition.
Oh, okay.
I don't remember where we had landed, and the form that Sarai had up said 25% of the registered electors, and that sounded really higher than I would
I
have.
thought we said,
It's in the minutes, but I think there's no decision in it.
Yeah, I think that's like, I think that was,
I mean, we are looking at somebody else's charter, so we
Yeah.
are change numbers.
Yeah, oh, yeah, no, we can't have 25.
Is there a number of electors or the number of people that voted in the last general?
Oh, they got the last received.
I think that the last man, 15% something like that.
so prior to 2017, ORC was 10%. Post 2017, it was 15%.
Okay.
Yeah.
Like the 50.
Or 10.
I don't even know what, I don't know, you know what, maybe we should make it 15, I mean, I can see it either way. I mean, you need to have to work a little bit, if you want to throw a politician out of office, you need to have to work to do it.
10%'s like 70 signatures.
Yeah,
That's,
well,
Compared to some of the people who were just saying that 10 was hard to get, this is
But this person was elected
yeah,
by a certain number.
But again, the petition's just putting it on the ballot. If all those people still love them, they have the opportunity to say, yes, I still love them.
I do think that if you want to vote somebody out of office, it needs to be a collective community effort. There's a grassroots effort, and you may have 20, 30 people saying, we need to get together, let's all get our 10 signatures, and so it's gonna be work, but there should be a reason, it can't be, I wanted to avoid one person going out there and just saying, okay, I'm gonna get 50 signatures and get this person.
But whatever the number is, I assure you that one person can do it. Whatever the number is.
If you are willing enough to do it,
Yeah.
you get everybody's.
I don't think it should be the same as to get a question on the ballot, because this is firing an elected official.
Yeah. I agree.
And there will be more, whether we do 15 or 25%.
Not everybody's gonna sign it,
Yeah.
Yeah, not everybody's gonna sign it.
Oh, no, absolutely not.
Dublin and Groveport had 15.
I'm fine.
Yeah, I like 15, I like 15 better than 10.
And it's 15%, so.
Right, 15%, right.
How many electors do we have?
I was just trying to pull that up right now.
Yeah, how do you find that?
It's on some of the board of elections, you can pull a whole list of registered voters.
Well, that's like, isn't it,
Well, you need to have electors who voted,
Yeah.
right?
Who's voting the last
The number is like
but yeah, you can still go last.
800 something
That's over 100 signatures.
is the number.
So what do we want it to be, 15?
Yes.
Or why don't we chop it
No,
to
I
12?
said sure. I didn't.
No.
Oh, no, I don't want to go down.
It's fine.
20 already, so there's
15. All right.
15?
I think 15 makes sense.
Because just this one.
Yeah.
It's like, I mean, it's somewhere in the 800. It's somewhere in the 800.
Yeah.
It's somewhere in the 800. 800.
Registered.
No. There are people who voted. It's like in the low 800s.
That's the one thing we always.
Not better?
That's
No.
that's better.
That's better.
Our new motto.
That's
Okay.
We vote.
Put it on all the mirror parts.
Okay, so postcard 2. All right, initiative and referendum. We have, I think we all agree, but I don't remember someone asked, stating that council rules are an exception for initiative and referendum. You can't do a referendum to revoke council rules. That's just. Okay.
I would, but
Oh, but you're feisty.
yeah,
You were right.
And some councils would do crazy rules.
because some councils would do create rules.
All right, and that's as far as we made it. We had some other.
We're about to do that.
We had some other items, that's as far as we made it. Did we finish that?
We finished it.
Oh, did you?
Oh, we did some sort of.
But I don't think there was any other.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
You need to
We were pretty torn on in this one.
Hand me back minutes.
It was
It was the mayor's staff.
Yeah, I think that.
Yes,
it's-
that was the general transition.
Yeah.
It's 11. So when we got the general and transition, that's where we fell apart. I think this one, we were good.
Yeah.
So. 11, 12. All right, any questions on the 10 before we move on?
You know, I do have to say that the minutes aren't reflecting that we thought the referendum part was just great, unless I'm missing it. It talks about, the conflict of interest stuff, it talks about, exactly, removal of officials, the adoption of the charter, that,
We are allowed a referendum, correct?
Yes.
we are now on the.
It said we're
We
allowing.
are allowing.
Oh, yeah.
If we are,
It's
some
on the
will come
bottom
out and
page
never
too, I
come
think.
back. Yeah.
That's kind of a,
Yeah.
there's no question about that. It's-
Two or three, I think, or maybe I.
Yeah, it looks like we actually agree.
Yeah.
So it must have been a pretty easy discussion.
Yeah, I think because Shelley brought up some language that we really liked, I think, that some of the language that was in the new Albany charter, so I just wanted that. So I remember.
We pull up with the, because I believe you are correct, that Shelley had one paragraph, sweet and simple.
She, remember, even called out the language exempting elections from referendums. You could have a referendum not to have one.
And then Eddie brought up section 405 of the new Albany charter, which exempted referendums. And we seem to like that on Sunday, so. But we're different people than are now, and we are then. So.
But if we agree on it,
If you have one.
We did have one, but we didn't vote on it. We're just drafting. Don't worry, we're gonna re-look at this once Kelly's drafted it all.
That's true.
if you're looking forward to that, yes.
It feels like we're flying through it. Yes, we are going to re-look at this. All right, so Article 11, general provisions. This is, remember all those things that we keep kicking down the road and we haven't addressed yet? This is where we have to address them. So the first call out was, if there's anything that you think that we kicked down the road that we haven't addressed yet, this is where it needs to be, so make sure we touch on it. I know everyone's got things near and dear to their hearts, so if we not called it out, let's make sure we do. In general, we decided we needed to define some things still. Elected official, that means public hearing versus public meeting. We need to clarify that.
We still need to clarify that?
Yeah, we already know, we have to clarify this. This is where we're gonna define it.
Yeah, we have to clarify, we haven't defined it.
We've used it a lot, but we haven't defined what the difference is, since we were so
We haven't
confused.
talked about it since last we met.
Oh my
With you.
God almighty,
Which is
okay,
good.
okay.
I mean, yes, it's worth
It just needs to be defined.
If there's anything else that we feel needs to be defined,
I mentioned that our definition of counting days are,
Yes.
what kind of days are
We just say it's always calendar days.
they? Yeah, we could, absolutely.
Does anybody have any problems calling any counted days?
I think it's perfect. Wasn't there something that you said 3 days or something?
yeah.
I think we should say unless otherwise specified, it's calendar days.
That's a lovely idea.
You count weekends.
Does it have to do with,
Yeah,
giving
yeah.
something to somebody who's in your sphere? Yes, yes.
Counted weekends.
Yes.
Like,
Okay.
I also note that the dates due is on Friday or Saturday or Sunday, not due next Monday or not.
We should count
No. So what if it's about something that's Saturday, not Saturday?
Then you should have planned to get it in.
No.
Well, that would be a lot more.
And that would be my answer. You should have planned better.
There was no mystery when you read you had 10 days. and the-
Right, when you read you had 10 days and you.
Although I will say, if the Franklin County Board of Elections has a building closed because they have a leak in the ceiling, they will give you an extra day beyond the legal deadline.
A week in the ceiling is different.
You know what?
Land.
That is the, this is us.
I know, I'm just saying, we're absolutely, I appreciate
There's,
that.
there's no room for negotiation.
So I think we need to make it clear to the person who's getting the petition together, though. Yeah. Somehow.
I mean, if they can read English
So
and
where does it define it?
interpret.
Where does it define it? Because they may say,
No,
they may say,
We
count as
calendar days, if it's a block on a calendar, it counts.
That's fine.
June 20th is coming fast.
Oh, all right.
Holy crap.
And it's always been tomorrow.
So I do have the, number for 11.
I want to make sure that.
Make sure the
The
chocolate's
next
still in
week
there.
is as good as the last.
seconds in its mouth, isn't it?
Is there, is nuts in it?
It's much.
No.
It's not pretzel.
Like, it's air coffee,
I got it.
and then some of the other stuff
So
is
it's half the calories could be here.
I don't give a damn about that.
When you hit a certain age, you don't care.
Seriously, I'm at that age. All right.
Can't wait.
That's when you start smoking too.
Yes.
Oh.
No. All right, bring it back, bring it back. All right, so there were some questions in here. We're just on general right now, we're not transitional, we did not make it that far. So, a section explicitly referring to Ohio law is pretty common. We were all okay with that, so if we have any objections, in other words, if our charter doesn't cover it, Ohio law does. We agreed on all those, I'm not gonna cover them. Question number 2 is actually a requirement of the charter, so legal succession. We feel like we need to cover it further. And that brought us to transitional provisions. See how quick that was? Is there anything else in general that we need to discuss or add in? I feel like we took a lot more hands on the road in this field. Don't look at that.
Yeah, the only thing that I have in the notes was the stuff about ethics, but then we pulled in the New Albany Charter that made it language that dealt with like ethical concerns, because they were specifically of interest to us in this village.
Yes. And then there's also OBETS, you like one section there, it's 11.4. All right, so transitional. Here we're gonna start defining our problems.
Was somebody gonna write an oath of office?
Yes, that was what we covered in general conditions as well, here's the other box.
But who, somebody had agreed to write that? Wasn't it?
Yes. Oh, we have one already.
Okay, never mind.
I thought somebody-
I mean, we got one else.
I don't think.
Oh, we just said it would be good to lay out.
Yeah, we agreed that it would be a good idea to do, but I seem to remember somebody volunteering, but I don't find it.
No, did volunteer to write something for the village.
Right.
Sure.
Fair
Why don't we just do what we do here now?
And I mean, we can.
Because Lynn has one that she was pretty
You take the president's one and you place the president's mayor.
Well, we can see what we also are.
Protect the river park from.
To protect and defend.
Right. We have that, he has that power. The mayor has that power. She's the chief.
So transitional procedures, we actually, I noticed that we like to, oh, that's why I didn't know why.
Second.
And that had a preference, that's the first.
Was it succession provisions? Succession provisions, was that the one? One or two, or transitional?
Transitional for OBETS, you can see if OBETS is on.
Let's get to the heart of it.
This is the hard one. The question, so we ran into problems, we started writing down problems, right? The first one, problem number 1,
General provision, hang on a second.
succession.
You just-
No, transitional, not succession. We've got succession covered.
Okay.
Transitional provisions, there we go.
Somebody's gonna help me out, because I did not, I cannot do that.
I'll just go ahead and make the first thing.
It works out.
All right.
That's really nice.
Yeah. All right, so this, we like this one the best. So the charter shall be submitted to the electors on election held on this date. If approved by majority of persons voting, it shall take effect from the date the final results of the election is certified by the election authorities for purpose of designating, nominating, and electing officers of said village and conducting municipal elections. For all other purposes, this charter shall take effect on a given date. That allows for things like the additional council person to be added to a ballot.
That's right, we've been arguing about this, we're discussing,
We haven't,
we're trying to figure out, well, we've talked about this before.
but we approved it.
I thought we did,
I did too.
like, what did we say, what did we give ourselves, I don't even remember.
Well, we gave ourselves 7, but it would be on the next election.
All right,
The
right,
extra person would be on the next election, and then
Yes.
after that, it would be 4-3 alternate.
yes, exactly.
But the transitional language there would give us the ability to add that person at the next election, and it's very vague. A lot of the other ones were much more specific, with an awful lot of confusing dates.
So if this goes into effect on January 1st, you're saying that the
Well,
seventh, the 7th person would not even be appointed, but would be elected in 11 months in November. and then not take office until 2021. Just making
I
sure.
heard it was how we wrote it, and then does that impact how many votes you made on the various things?
What?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, if I vote
But here's where we call out that those kinds of changes don't take effect until, until that January 1, and that's.
So you have a charter, and the charter's approved, it doesn't only take effect for a year.
Yeah, I mean, you can,
Well, here's what we're defining what takes effect. The administrator would be 6 months. The council person will be the next election. So this is where we're defining that. So it's not already set, that's what the discussion is right now.
Right, because in November, you're gonna have elections for people running for mayor or council. Positions are open. And you're gonna have this on the ballot, so people are gonna say, yeah, we're going to go to charter. So, and they elected also a mayor or something.
so in that, sorry, it just came up in my mind, is that next November is not a regular council election. So either we have one seat that's on a different cadence, right? So it'd be 1, 4, and 2.
Well, I mean, we've already approved how this is gonna work out, dates and
All right, you say so.
everything.
So you're saying it's gonna be 2 years?
That's a lot of context.
She's, you know, I agree that we have talked through that.
No, I was thinking, I don't.
They're all
I just
over
wanted
there.
to- I just wanted to talk. Anyways.
But I just find it odd, and I would go along with whatever anybody says, but if we thought it was a good idea to have 7, then why in the world are we gonna wait a year and then have it odd, or 2 years if we wanna get it with the, when
Well, because when the
municipal elections off?
Well, that person's term is going to be on all the other elections.
Not if you define that the person that's appointed under the charter will then be where they fall in when the actual municipal elections take place. I would not have us be have an odd year.
You know, that's exactly right, because that's exactly how it works now. I mean, somebody may be appointed on on October 1st, and they may have to run in the very next month. They may have to run or whatever. I mean, yeah, you appoint the 7th person and define which election their time falls in. Instead of having this flying oddball,
Or wait 2 years and get it on. Because the state defines when municipal elections take place.
Well, so we've defined it as the members, so including the members of council under the general statutory plan of government for the Village of Missouri Park at the time this charter becomes effective, including the 2 members of council who were elected in November 2019. For terms beginning January 1st, 2020, are hereby designated as initial members of the council under this charter. At the regular municipal election to be held in November 2021, and each 4 years after, 4 persons shall be elected. These are 4-year terms, and the regular municipal election to be held in 2023, and each 4 years after, 3 persons.
3 people.
So you go 2 years with.
You have to 2023, like that.
Sure, that's what I want.
Okay.
24 would be elected in 2021.
And 3.
3 will be elected
No,
in 2023.
Because we now do 4
I see
and
what
2.
you're saying.
Oh, you're saying we now do 4 and 2.
We now do 4 and 2, so if you're doing 4 and 2, I was just assuming that 3rd person was the new person. The additional person.
No, why can't they be one of those 4 in 2021?
You're starting on the behind.
You can do it.
You know what?
Because you're starting on the behind.
It makes more sense if we do it that way. The new person is in the 2021 election. They are appointed, there's somebody appointed, and then they have to run. If they want to keep the job, if they like the job, if they want to do the job, then they have to run in 2021. And then we're done. Boom. We don't have any oddball.
And it's 4 and
It's 4 and 3.
Okay, so you're saying, just to make sure, because there's a lot of numbers and things. So what you're saying is, we appoint someone when? So this passes in November, everybody starts their new terms January 1st, 2020. When are you proposing that somebody be appointed?
January, whenever, they start the process to appoint someone, beginning the first regular council meeting in January 2020. They start the process, that doesn't mean that they're gonna, the very first meeting, they're not gonna have somebody. They're gonna have to
Or maybe.
Announce it.
announce it, and they're gonna,
Or maybe they do have someone first meeting, are we okay with that if they do?
sure.
Okay, so then you're saying at the regular municipal elections in 2021, that person runs again, they're one of the four.
Right.
That's
So
correct.
2023, we have the other four,
Correct.
So the board is going to be appointed.
but it's a new council that's elected.
Is there any rules about making the village aware that we're going to be appointing council?
Will be written in the charter, those that we sign.
So, that's how it's done now.
I thought that there was an announcement, it was always in the village or
Oh,
every other meeting. Is it,
I mean, we can make,
they interview, don't they?
they do, they interview, and we can, I don't know, I don't remember how they do it. It is in,
We have written into the charter the process for appointing the council person. So it should follow that same process, and you should indicate that that process should start at the first regular scheduled council meeting of.
I agree.
To your point, I talked to Paul Hensey today, and we took all the Johnstown things, so we get an estimate how much it would cost to mail stuff. And Johnstown gives a nice summary of kind of what these changes would mean. I would think even in that summary, it will say if this is passed, a new council member will be appointed. And so right away, people in the village should know that there's going to be a new person.
So Evan, just for notes, if we're going to do it that way, section 308 of our current charter, we've written, says that a vacancy in council shall be filled by a majority vote of the remaining council members. If the vacancy occurs on or after July 1st of the second year of the term, they serve the unexpired term. If the vacancy occurs on or before July 30th of the second year of the term, then they shall serve until successor is elected at the next municipal election.
So the only thought that I would add to all that is that you should say that that appointed seat expires with the next, right? That appointed seat is only until the next general election.
And are we not setting a deadline when they have to appoint someone?
It's in
It's
the,
in there. So if the council fails to fill a vacancy in council within 60 days after the occurrence of said vacancy, or January 1st in this case, then the mayor shall appoint a person to serve.
but does that put us in a 5-2 situation? So you will elect 5 council people and then 2 years later, 2 council people.
does it
That would
matter?
not be the intent.
Well,
I mean,
It doesn't matter.
if they do it that way,
Yeah.
if that's what ends up happening, that's not our fault. I mean, we try to set it up so that it wouldn't be idiotic, and if it ends up idiotic, oh well.
I've seen in transition plans where it'll call out a position like this particular council member.
a temporary.
And that this is the way it's gonna work, and whether it expires or it is this, and then moving forward,
And we could do that too. I mean, we have the power, that's what we want to look at.
Actually, that might be 4 years from now.
What did you say?
So my point was that that person, that appointed seat, I was thinking it shouldn't be an appointed seat for 4 years.
No, absolutely not.
But here's the problem. If it's not an appointed seat for 4 years, and it's an appointed seat for only 2 years, right, the next council election, that's the cycle where we have 4 seats up already. So now if we're adding that extra seat to that election cycle, then we're electing 5, and then in 2 years, we're electing 2.
I think that you may be able to solve this problem simply by naming in the transition document that the seat is created immediately and that the first election for a seat is on X date. That way it creates the vacancy immediately, and then the first election is on X date. the vacancy would need to be filled by appointment because there is an open seat. And then the first election, you'd be able to choose that date, and that way you'd know that it would be on the correct schedule.
But what about the 4 people who were already supposed to vote for election?
This would be therefore an appointment for, this would therefore be a 3-year appointment.
Yeah, almost 4 years.
Almost
3 years
4.
left.
You're right, it would be
That's
almost
the-
4-year appointment.
And that's the concern, is that
You need, if you have an interest in recalling that person.
an appointment is.
You can recall it whether they're elected or
Yeah.
appointed.
Because they're serving in an elected office.
Yes,
Is that,
but you still gotta give them 6 months first. 6 months will really screw it.
and I'm sorry about this, but I'm
No,
sorry.
no, because I like the 4-3, because it's hard to have 5 new,
Right, but
you know,
if
if
you've
you have
got,
5 new council.
if you've got 4 people who are supposed to be up for reelection in that first upcoming cycle, they
And is that,
appointed person.
well, let's verify that that's where you are.
2 seats in this November, 4 seats in 2 years. Right, because it's, what would have been the Michael Braun, Russell Dobbins seats that were last elected into these 2 seats.
Right. Right.
Oh, I know.
I know you're right. But just,
He is right for.
It's hard, I mean, to figure out how to make it work.
So,
if we do this, just so you know, this first general election for Ohio for 2020 is November 3rd of 2020. Okay. The first general election.
How does that help us?
And it would be too complex to have that one seat that was appointed be part of that, and then that person elected, it slips in to the 4-3 rotation.
I think there's a big difference
Because,
between 3 and 2, talking about context.
so
Are you talking about having, I'm sorry, are you talking about having that additional council member reelected on this coming November?
not in 2020.
2020. Next.
Because the idea of appointing somebody to a 4-year,
Appoint
is to take away from the electorate, the people.
So I have a completely different idea. So it's an appointment immediately for an election in November 2019 for that first term to be 3 years.
Okay,
And then it normalizes that.
Wait.
So here's the problem we're having.
We don't mean 2019.
You mean 2020?
What year is this?
This is 2019.
Sorry.
I'm like, holy
So January 2020, someone gets appointed.
Right.
That seat, we put it up for election, November 2020.
That's what I, that's
Oh,
what
and
I
I
said.
should have
That's
said that.
exactly what
But
I
we
said.
specified that election is a 3-year term.
And then they
Yes, that first time, just
Doing
that
it.
first
I'm doing
time
it.
is a 3-year
And we'll
term.
talk about it again on next Thursday.
No.
You want to talk about it again?
No. If we talk about it again, we're tossing tables.
I mean, Heather's ready to toss games now, we just
I
gotta,
came to this commission with the toss table.
That's right.
It's not worse.
we just started the section.
What'd you say?
We just gone through-
I hope there's nothing-
Yeah, we did just kind of through the section.
Well,
But it makes more sense.
I've actually thought of several ideas.
We have to do something. We have to do
Let's
something.
have somebody rewrite it and see if we like the language, we vote on that.
All right.
Yeah, we can rewrite it.
Characters.
And you're putting that in minutes, right? I don't think that works.
Yes, so
Okay.
let me just reiterate what we're saying, so I know I'm getting it down. They will be appointed on January 1st of 2020. They will then go up for election on November 3rd of 2020. Their term shall be 3
3
years
years.
after
Their
that.
initial
Initial
term
term.
will be 3 years. After that, it will be a regular 4-year term. Yes.
And they won't be appointed January 1. That's when they start the process.
Yeah.
Okay, Sorry.
When
To be appointed as soon as possible. Right.
So if, wait, I'm so lost. So they're appointed in 2020 for a 3-year term.
No, appointed in 2020, and that seat that they are appointed to is up for re-election in November of 2020.
Okay.
That first term that seat is elected for in 2020 is a 3-year term. So that, when they're up for re-election, they will seat in with the people who were electing this November 2019.
In 2023.
In 2023, they will just join up, and then they will have a 3-seat cycle.
Add it to the 2019 election.
Unfortunately, it would be.
You have no authority to do so, unfortunately.
Yeah, there's no seat for them to run for.
You did it.
We had to do a space-time continuum loop.
Right.
To have the charter be in
If the
effect.
charter passes, we're adding just one of these 5 people that are,
You want to vote on
Good idea.
I see what you're saying.
I mean, we did it with the charter. If the charter passed,
Yeah.
here are your 15 people that are gonna get a charter.
We did do
Well,
I like that
the
idea.
state- the state constitution did that. We didn't do that, but I don't know that
That'd be too complicated.
I do agree with, it's a beautiful idea, I just don't think it.
Oh, it's a good idea.
We have something else.
It is a good
Crazy
idea,
enough to work.
It's crazy.
but it will never.
It's crazy. You have too
I'm afraid
many
of
things.
it.
Current council,
Right.
charter, future potential council is too much to think about.
It is too much.
That's the one that makes the most sense to me, so obviously it's not possible.
It actually makes too much sense.
Say it again, or just putting it on the ballot.
Right.
November 19th.
Yes.
Do you want me to,
Maybe I'll
Okay.
get this up.
Good idea.
What if you automatically, if you have 3 people running for council in 2019, and the charter passes that, or if you have more than 2 people running for council in 2019, the third person who got, third in line for the votes was automatically appointed. If the charter passes.
I don't think it should be automatic.
Well,
But
Well,
that,
but that would
certainly,
be good.
without your case for being appointed.
Right.
If charter passes,
And that-
we'll make it 3. If the charter does not pass, we'll make it 2.
oh my God.
I mean, it takes.
No, it does, I mean,
It's
it
not a
makes
terrible
sense,
idea.
it's not a terrible idea, but
I don't know if it's legal right now, but I
I
like
think
it.
something run by the law.
Yeah,
You're probably better keeping them separate.
My name is John Smith and I want to run for council. Let's say it's on the ballot this time around, 2019. Do I run for open seat number 1, open seat number 2, or potential hypothetical seat number 3? I consider that a large, I don't think you're going to get anyone to run for
That's how it
a hypothetical seat.
you're right, no, you're right.
well, no, because John
That's not what
Smith,
you're saying at all.
John Smith runs for a seat, because you don't run for the Michael Braun seat or the Russell Dobbins seat, you just run for a seat. And the top 2 get seated, right? So everybody who's running is potentially running for a seat. And
Is that how it would work?
that is.
Well, that is how it works.
Today.
No, with this third hypothetical seat.
Well, that's the question we're asking. That is a,
I think it's an additional caveat to the question we're asking.
Anybody that runs wants to go.
that's legal. I
I mean,
think.
if the charter didn't pass, and we all got elected, we would not be elected.
Right.
I mean, it's,
Right.
Yeah.
But I don't know if May 9th gives you enough time to do that. I mean, but it's written in the charter, isn't it? So
No, he's saying put the third one on the ballot in the fall.
I know, get it on the ballot in the fall. It has to be submitted by certain.
Instead of discussing this for another 5 minutes, can we just ask Paul if it's legal?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Alright,
And we'll circle right back around like Pam was. About this later.
no more idea how to use it. This whole sentence is banned from my.
I know.
Bad thing.
Alright, so problem number 2. Alright, problem number 2. Transition tasks from mayor to administrator. Hey, we gotta tackle it sometime, here we are. Yeah, this,
Okay, transition tasks.
What's it?
Did you get anybody send you ideas?
Nope, but I also didn't send the email asking, so I'm
Oh,
gonna
good idea.
I'm gonna, make it.
So this is transition, you said from the mayor?
Right, so right now, we have a mayor, we don't have an administrator, so the mayor doesn't always have to be designated to go to the administrator. So what do we want that transition plan to look like? Yay, we've elected the mayor, woo! Yay, we found an administrator, they've gone through all the things to get hired, we have an administrator, they're sitting there as administrators day one. What does this look like? Transition.
Do we need to?
A lot of those things I've also, we also need to.
I guess I'm trying to figure out
Back up.
why the mayor can't come up with a transition plan of what powers the position mayor wants to give up.
No,
It's already late,
We've already discussed all that stuff.
The administrator doesn't know a lot of things, they have to learn.
Yeah, but the mayor, the administrator is going to be hired by the mayor.
Yeah.
Correct, right?
with council approval.
With council's approval.
That's right.
We could have the mayor, the current mayor, could be the new mayor. We could have a new mayor.
So I think it's less of a how does this happen, but when does it need to happen by? I think that's the way we need to
Yes.
answer that question.
Okay, fair enough.
Right,
Okay,
so we need to give a direction here to, the council and to whatever elected mayor is, hey, we're putting you on a timer and you need to have begun the search for an administrator by this date, and an administrator needs to be hired by that date.
I thought that we did go through the dates and administrator needs to be hired by date. We
No,
didn't.
we do not.
We have some information on like dates for replacing council members if they step down. I think there's some dates for like timing for replacing a mayor if they
We
step down.
We may do the dates for replacing an administrator if and when they leave, but this first one.
Yeah.
This is where we have discussed.
So say, I'm just trying to get this in my head, I'm sorry.
Sure.
So say we vote in, so I think it's easier with the current mayor, goes and wins election, she would have a pretty good idea of what she does and what, it's all kind of laid out. What she's gonna do. So if we have a new mayor come in, they're starting the position from day one, this is their new position. They're not transitioning anything. They have to hire an administrator by a certain date. I don't understand the transition, what are they transitioning?
What they,
Okay, why would it,
But
we're not transitioning.
we as a village are transitioning.
Yes, the mayor just has to hire a administrator.
And that's the transition. That is itself a transition.
so maybe I explained.
No administrator to administrator.
But for a new mayor, it's not just gonna be like, this is my job.
Well, until that administrator is on board, it's gonna be.
And the other was before,
Yeah.
He's running the show.
Yeah, that's how it's gonna have to be.
So why don't we plug into what we have, which is the village operates off a calendar year. And so at the end of the first quarter, identified at the end of the very first quarter, because I think people are gonna feel a sense of uncertainty for a while. And there's something tidy about that.
There is, but you don't want to have an administrator hired by them.
Well, I'm proposing that be the goal. To, by the end of the first quarter, the administrator is hired. By the end of the second quarter, the beginning, the process has begun to build out what the administrator is gonna do and how the mayor's powers and responsibilities will shift, and give a 3-quarter or 4-quarter process. 1 year is plenty to me, to be able to make that shift from this to this.
I think what we're trying to do is define it so that there is not keep dragging. So, I mean, I could be wrong.
I mean, originally, I'm not saying that, at all.
Originally, when we first talked about this, you made a comment that it takes, people need time to adjust to change. And I totally agree with that, and originally I thought, you know what, actually breaking this down in a year makes sense, but I don't agree with that anymore at all. I actually think that,
I think if I was hired as administrator, I'd be like, okay, let's go.
yeah, I mean,
Let's go.
once an administrator is hired, then mayor, administrator, and council have 10 days
to get their crap together and get rolling. Because this should be a professional person who has training and education and is able to do that.
The other thing we have to account for is what if we hire them and then they quit right away, and then we have to start over.
Then we have to start over.
Wouldn't it make more sense to say within 90 days of hire, all the duties of administrator?
That's 3 months, no. Okay. I don't think 3 months is very long.
What are you saying?
So we've got these powers and duties of an administrator laid out already in our charter. So if we give a timeline of all powers and duties of the village administrator shall be transferred within the first 90 days of hire.
I don't understand why they're,
So,
why don't they just run on day one?
so hold on. Yes, I agree, but we also don't have to transfer powers and duties in one fell shot, right? So the mayoral powers that they currently have, as they differ from the future state, would be currently the mayor has a vote in ties, right? So we should remove that power as soon as a seventh council member is.
Here.
Right? That is one transitional power, duty, responsibility, and we've just laid out how it can be transitioned, right? Number two is, in this new scenario, the mayor gets a veto. Does the mayor get the veto vote as soon as they lose the tie vote? Or does that wait until some other trigger? What's the trigger for that other power?
For the veto vote,
Yeah.
the hiring and onboarding of the administrator.
Or, so now we have a situation where we have given.
The administrator.
No, keep talking.
Yeah, I mean, we gave that as a balance to powers, that losing the tie vote is why we gave the veto. So is that a holding that veto vote until an administrator is in place? Is that a carrot? Well, that was her suggestion, so I'm asking, is it a carrot to incentivize a mayor to push to get an administrator?
You want all your powers, you better hire an administrator.
I'm not opposed to that, I'm just making sure that we're aware of what line.
I don't.
No, yeah.
I don't want Mayor Bob to have a vote and veto
No,
Right,
at the same time.
yeah,
when the seventh
So
person.
if you're
Right, if they're
triggering,
not going
if you're
to.
triggering getting rid of the vote,
but it's the vote to make a tie, to break a tie, that's what we're getting rid of.
That's the
When
thing
the
that.
seventh member is instilled.
Okay.
Unrelated to the.
and then
Now,
the veto
the
goes
veto,
into effect once the administrator's done.
that's what's on the table right now.
Right, because
So at some point where the mayor may not have either.
Correct.
that's correct.
Okay, so you'll
I
follow.
want
That doesn't make any sense.
Why doesn't it make sense?
Because,
You're replacing one with the other.
well, no, because, okay, so with the passing of the charter, the mayor no longer has tie-breaking vote on the council. That's gonna cause enough problems as it is until you get that seventh person in there anyway.
No, they.
Right away,
Go ahead.
please. Then you're saying that the mayor, while going through the process of trying to find an administrator, also doesn't have full access to all of their, duties and responsibilities. So you basically hog-tied them into a position that doesn't make any sense until they hire an administrator. And that process could take 90 days. It could take longer than that, depending on how many applications we get, So, no, they have all of their duties and responsibilities after the day that the charter goes into effect.
Actually,
That is
the day
obviously
the
the
charter goes into effect, more duties and responsibilities than charter does. Because in transition, the mayor
They're
is
also
still,
taking care of the administrator stuff.
yeah,
And I think that, yes, we should be encouraging everyone to get together and get an administrator in there as quickly as possible so the mayor doesn't have too many duties based on how we've written this. But I think that we need to have at least 90 days to find an adequate candidate. And then we need to give that person 90 days to get adjusted to the job.
I'm not disagreeing with any of that.
Which
I
we're at 6 months in now, and if we're saying that the mayor
Get adjusted to-
doesn't,
Hold on, let her finish, we got,
And-
I'm gonna jump in if I may.
Okay.
It's ironic. I know that we all feel passionately about this, but we need to let each other finish our sentences before we jump in. So if we have a thought, you can raise your hand.
I'm sorry,
That's
all
I interrupted her to say.
I know, and I was
You're
just-
just me, sorry, I'm just asking, this is getting a little out of control this evening.
I wasn't actually.
You were, she was in the middle of a
I
sentence,
know.
and it feels so passionately, we love her.
I wasn't going to disagree with her.
We don't care if
I
you're
was
disagreeing.
repeating what she said to try to get it in my head, sorry.
I know, we don't care. if you're
I was
disagreeing.
thinking out loud.
You're throwing her off the problem. So let's all agree to hold it in. until the
Sorry,
person finishes
sorry,
speaking.
Sarai.
And wherever you were saying when I interrupted, please carry on.
so basically, my final point with this is, we're talking about a 6-month transition period from January 1st until you have somebody in the administrator position that's gonna be comfortable doing all of their job. Let's not also put more, strain on the mayor by telling them they can't legally do half of their job until the administrator is in place. That just makes literally no sense to me.
I don't see what she can do. What can they do?
Well, so, hold on, so there are some things that I'd like to address. One is that this transition language, we can pick and choose how and when those powers and duties transfer. That's the whole point of transition language. So the mayor doesn't have to have all of the duties that we have defined in the charter on January 1.
No, they need to have all of the duties on January 1, or you're gonna have a major mess of
Oh,
just
I-
stuff.
Why?
All of,
I disagree completely.
I don't agree, I need clarification. All of the duties that they have pre-charter or post-charter?
All of the duties that they have post-charter, plus all of the duties of the administrator, need to meet the mayors on day 1, so that they can actually help to facilitate the transition. Otherwise, their hands are gonna be tied on some of the transition stuff.
Okay, you're gonna have to
Give
flesh
me an
that out.
example of what would be.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So if they can't do a veto, which is one example that you already gave,
Sure.
then, and we only have 6 people because we have to put another council member in, and they can't do a tie-breaking vote, what happens then?
Right, so that's why we were talking about what triggers the transfer of those powers, right? Because they need to have a tie-breaking vote as long as we have an even number, right, of council people. But as soon as they know we no longer have that even number of council people, when we're at a 7 number of council people, then they no longer need that tie-breaking vote.
Correct.
So that's why I proposed that the trigger to removing the tie-breaking vote as a power of the mayor is the installation of a 7th council person.
Okay.
Right, and now the next question was, what is the trigger for giving the veto vote? And what was proposed by Jan Estes was that it not go into effect until there's an administrator. She was only just done talking about that when you started talking.
I mean,
Now, I hear what she's saying, and I want to make sure we all understood that we were leaving the mayor without the balance of power that the veto was intended to be. I think that the same trigger should be used for both, is my own opinion. But I wanted to make
Oh, I
sure
see.
everybody.
The same trigger you.
Yeah, because it's a
I think
balance of
I
power.
would be willing to agree to that, because that is
Yeah.
a better balance of power that doesn't
That's-
tie up our administrative process.
Just want to leave that.
Sid?
It seems to me that we need to define, there seems to me there's gonna have to be more than one trigger.
Okay, we have.
We need to define when this power is transferred, and that power is transferred.
Well, now,
What's the line
now,
that needs to be transferred?
now what's the next bit is really administrative function, right? And at least as I see, it. People can tell me where I'm wrong, but the next difference in pre and post charter duties is management of staff, is administrative function, right? And I believe that this is where Sarai and Nina have both indicated that some amount of onboarding time is reasonable. And I don't disagree, right? So, 30 days after hire, right, is a transition, and that's the point at which, it's just a number, right? I'm just making that up because 30 days is,
That's what I don't understand. Because I've been in so many positions where I've managed teams of people, and I was never given the opportunity to say, okay, you've got 30 days, it's like day one, you are the person that manages that. If we hire an experienced or that's.
I agree with
So
you.
that's a big difference between corporate.
Well, why is it different? We're hiring somebody
I don't know.
to come in,
I'm
and
not
that's
saying
their
it should
job. I wouldn't want to be at a job for 60 days, and I couldn't do anything.
Where you couldn't do anything. Right, where your situation was basically nebulous.
Yeah, what do you do?
Handle your job.
It's not so
Well-
complicated.
I'm thinking about staff. And the council is gonna have a say in some of this too. But for instance, the clerk of council, duties, and that could go to another person, and that's gonna take some time to decide, who might take it on, so that's one. And then the police department, their reporting lines, they're so used to reporting to, Lynn right now and all that, plus with the EMA, there might be some changes, that there is gonna need to be a little bit, I'm not saying 90 days, but just a bit to get it figured out.
So let's do this.
After you're done.
We've outlined the powers and duties of the administrator. Does it make sense to just go through these and decide what takes place day one, what needs to either be addressed beforehand, technically mayoral power, but we needed to make it through until the administrator is hired, and what is fine given day one?
You're doing the duties of the
Of the
administrator.
Right. So in other words, do these things need to be addressed in the interim?
And we should also consider maybe as a council, because we would increase some of those and talk about that.
Stop making it harder.
Well,
Well, no, I mean, you're not wrong, but let's do one thing first.
What do I get sued?
I want to make one point.
when does he get sued?
Yes,
Saturday night, but.
If I was
Are
elected mayor, I would want the authority, in fact, I would make sure, certain I had the authority to make that decision, whether or not the position administrator that I hired was good enough to take over the duties when I thought they were ready to take over the duties. And if that's,
Well,
day one,
there's-
why would we not leave it to the position of mayor to make that decision?
So I think what we're trying to do is make sure there aren't things like that vote in veto situations where we need to know
That's fine,
what's.
there's nothing to do with let's strictly talking about transition.
Okay, so I think the transition are probably more stuff on for you. Transition for the charter, not the person. Transition for the duty, not the person. So the vote, not the person. Right, we're trying to transition the village from after the mayor does everything, so the mayor doesn't do these things. And does that start January 1 when the charter goes into effect? Or do we need to make a caveat somewhere for the mayor shall hold this power until such time as? That's what we're trying to do.
Right, why don't you just say until the manager is hired?
I don't agree, but I understand, but I would want to hire, because it's going to take some time. To me, the transition is the time it takes to hire an administrator. There's no way you're going to do it in 30 days.
Sure. So do we just make it, I mean, is that the transition? That as soon as the administrator is hired, then it happens?
Okay, so who's in charge of managing the transition? Because if we put the mayor in charge of managing the transition,
Define managing the transition.
so moving from only having a mayor to the mayor is officially done with the rules that we've taken out for them.
We're charged to define it. They're charged
But we've given
But
that
who
power.
manages that it's actually happening? Because we can say it in the charter,
We
but
said,
if it doesn't happen, who is watching and who is making sure
And then
that it
they're
happens?
they're looking to these or in contempt of the charter or something like that. And
But-
that's a bigger issue.
But we need somebody who's in charge of watching.
No,
and we've talked a little bit about this, but not made a decision.
Because
tonight.
if we say that the mayor is in charge of it and they have a certain deadline when everything has to be done, and they say, well, what can be done before this?
They made a whole laws or regulations, whatever the word is, in the village, and if they're not doing it, they're malfeasance or whatever.
And I get it, but somebody's just gotta make sure that it's realistically
It's
happens.
actually misfeasance.
I knew it was this. So what I'm trying to say is, it's not something that we need to write in charter.
Okay.
Because that's always an issue with any elected official not doing what they're supposed to do. I understand what you're asking, but it's not something we're gonna solve in the charter.
I think we can, I think we can
Yeah,
designate a
Just
person.
designate
You guys don't even know what the thing is.
Well, the mayor is responsible, and we can define deliverables, I was just thinking about this, so I think between January 1 and whatever day the transition is completed, it would be a good idea to define a monthly deliverable, that forces a communication of the process.
I think we need to define what it is first. I'm
Yeah,
sorry,
well,
I'm
what- yeah, we can, what steps in the last 30 days have been taken to achieve hiring an administrator?
For instance, there's
Jen, Jen's had her hand up.
a good little thing.
Write it down. Write it down, Jen's had her hand up.
So I want to address what you said. I agree with you that the moment, literally the moment the administrator is hired, to me, do your job. Here are your responsibilities as outlined in this charter. Now go work. The problem with that is exactly what Pam said. The issue is not that I do think whoever's hired will have the ability to do that day one. However, it's not going to be that easy for the people who already work here, and specifically the police department and the fire department. You can, they are gonna take some, I guess, cushion time. They're gonna take a little time. Do we need to define that amount of time? No, I don't actually think we do. I don't think we should. I would like the administrator to begin his or her responsibilities immediately. I understand that personnel may have a problem with that. I don't care, right? But honestly, that's a thing. Like, that's an actual thing that we have to pay attention to.
My little example is, two people sign checks, right? So they hired, day one, day two, they need to start, well, wait a minute, the bank hasn't even gotten the signature cards for the person that is now the second signer of the checks. And you've got all these little things that just need to be done, and the policies and procedures that now integrate this administrator as the supervisor into the whole scheme. And it's just gonna take you some time.
Do we need to define things like that, or do we just need
We
to?
need to define that they've got, who's managing it, and when they should have this wrapped up by.
So, Jen's hand up.
Yes, two quick things. The first I'm going to say, based on, as safety chair, I've dealt with both the chiefs, and I will say that they are the people who would need the least time in order to understand and obey the chain of command. It may take some of the office personnel a little bit longer, but people with a police and fire background are going to understand your chain of command probably faster than anybody else. Second point is that this commission has chosen to delegate a rather large piece of this puzzle to the village council, and that is who is full-time and who is part-time. And I believe that the speed at which a transition can be made between powers delegated to the mayor and transitionally powers delegated to the administrator is going to be highly dependent on who is physically in this office, whether it is the administrator full-time and the mayor no time at all, whether it's both of them full-time, or whether it's both of them part-time, or whether it's, any combination of those therein. Therefore, I wonder if it's not instead prudent to leave the specific dating of deliverables to council as well.
I think that by the time the council comes up with the date of this deliverables, it's
it's gonna be significantly longer than perhaps is good.
Council.
Just remember the council would have, I'm sorry.
I was gonna say, no, the council needs to start the day after it is voted in to write new council rules that go into that.
And,
Right,
and that's what I was gonna say, council will actually have November 4th, you know, not January 1st to start on this, they'll have November 4th.
I think a lot of this happens organically with you. We're gonna have a position in there, whether they're part-time or full-time. We're gonna have that, we know for a fact. That mayor's gonna come in, they're going to start the job search for an administrator. During that time, everybody knows they're gonna have a new boss. It's written in the charter already. It's gonna give them the 30 days or 60 days or 90 days to adjust to having a new position over them. And then during that time, we had the time to do the signature cards, I just think a lot of that stuff's just gonna happen. If you put a date on it and say, we have to have an administrator by 90 days, then we might be stuck with some terrible administrator. Or if you make it 30 or 60 or 90, if you make it too long, or waiting too long, I don't know, I don't like the idea of dates either. I mean, I get, you want an administrator, a qualified administrator as soon as possible.
That is the corollary to my point, and though I would add, you said the mayor is going to be full-time or part-time. I would actually point out that Kim Pulley is currently budgeting $6,000 a year for a mayor under the assumption that under the scheme as currently devised, the mayor will be a ceremonial figurehead.
Why? Why would they do that? The charter's not in effect, the charter's not in effect.
No, no, okay,
That is the prerogative of her office to budget.
she's got two budgets, so if it is this way, it's like
Okay,
this.
well, if you have two budgets, that's fine. But that hasn't been decided, even if we pass this charter and we have a mayor, it's still up, isn't it up to council to determine whether it's going to be a full-time or part-time position?
From your
I
lips
don't
to
think
the repeated years of council and staff. But
That's all hearsay. It's literally all hearsay. There's nothing based on that.
So what are we even trying to discuss right now? I'm so sorry, I'm lost. I understand we're having lots of good conversations, but as far as the transition process, what thing are we trying to do?
Right now, the discussion, as I understand it, is whether to have a transition process at all. I mean, get it out.
And maybe I'm not the only one on this side. If you guys all want to have a
Not having to do
specific
that.
date.
Not having a time, just letting it all happen sort of organically as the council and the mayor determine, is what, I think is what.
It's kind of where I'm being,
Yes, okay.
if you don't agree,
Yeah, no,
vote.
and I'm more comfortable with some kind of deadlines that should be met, but they're gonna be generous.
Right, the concern would be, what if they never, administrator never gets hired?
That could happen. That could happen. If you have it, then it could happen.
What, that is not something we want to allow.
What if we just put the drop dead date when everything has to be done, and then they have a certain time period to phase it in?
We can put them in the same position we're in, right?
Yeah.
Got it written in a year, good luck.
Even if you have.
Do your best.
All right, so Jen's had her hand up, let's listen to what Jen has to say.
Well, I was gonna say something, but now I think Eddie has it, I think Eddie just said it. I think that is, I agree with, the reason that I don't want, you have to have a administrator hired by X date is because it'll take exactly that length of time. That person will not be hired until we are butted up right against that date. Absolutely. And if we give them 3 months to do it, that is how long it'll take. Where otherwise, it may have only taken 2 months, or maybe it would have taken 6 months. I'm not saying that, but I'm saying I believe that it would take, if we give them a date, that's exactly how long it will take. And I think Eddie's right. We should say by this date, everything has to be done. The administrator has to be hired. Everybody has to be working in their new roles and responsibilities. Done.
So I would like to take it back even a step further and say, there are some people who would like to have dates or deadlines, those are different things. They could start from a different trigger. So I would like to maybe take it back a little bit. What things do we think need to have time constraints attached? Well, that's the question. What things do we think have to have time constraint attached?
Well, I think that the veto and the veto and the tie break, I think should not necessarily be date driven, but trigger what Brian said. So when this happens, then that automatically ends. So there's no question.
Okay, so the veto / vote kind of thing.
I'd like to see, the conversation would have to be, when do council rules that take into effect, but that include all of these changes, 6 votes or 5 votes and those kinds of things. What, a resolution's taking effect immediately, all that needs, they need to figure out. No, I mean, they have to write council rules that will and mimic those, and are they gonna write those and have them go into effect January 1st? I don't know, but,
Yeah, she's right about that, Rainey. She's absolutely right. We cannot ignore this.
Did we give a deadline that they have to be written by every year? I could be wrong.
they go into effect the first of every year, they do it every year. And
And that's the only thing. We didn't give them, we said, oh, well,
That's a deadline.
yeah, I guess maybe we did. Maybe we did say January 1st.
The council shall meet the council's first meeting, council shall adopt by majority vote of its members of rules. The rules shall go into immediate effect unless a later date is given, and we do not give time.
so,
Okay.
So, but that would be something to be addressed in section, I'm sorry, article 3. But you're right, it's a call out, it's something we should.
when do all these new legislative procedures, what's the trigger for that?
That's different than the council rules, legislative procedures would be January 1st.
Well, council rules reflect those kinds of things. I know it seems redundant, but council rules will restate how many votes it takes to pass, and council rules will restate, how when you can waive readings, et cetera.
But our charter,
Or
they don't get to write council rules that say anything different, so they're not effective, they would be, for those things, for other things, I see what you're saying, but for those things, council rules don't matter.
So, but
Or,
in our
I-
legislative procedure, we have, number of votes required to pass different kinds of things. Does that go into effect? Do those numbers go into effect January 1, or do they go into effect when a 7th council person is?
That's a
the
good
question.
one,
I think
okay.
they have to go into effect, or they're gonna have to go back and rewrite all of them for.
No, it's the line goes like this: rules pertaining to legislative procedure go into effect at the appointment of the 7th council person. So you would stay with the statutory process
Yes.
until that thing that we just defined as the trigger.
Okay, and we're not going to define the trigger now, I just want to define the things that need to have a date or deadline or trigger attached. So we define that one, the vote or the veto, and then you had your hand up. I don't know where you're going with the deadline.
I do think we should put a hard and fast date on the appointment of the 7th council member.
And also where they fit the election cycle.
I know, we already did it. I know we already did it, but
But still a good thing to have.
But it does need to be in the transition, language.
I got it, what else?
That's it.
Do we want to say?
Other question, what participation of the council is connected with the hiring of the administrator? In other words, we are saying that the mayor hires the administrator with the approval of council. So they're involved in this whole action too.
A lot.
A lot. So, I mean,
Are you saying we hire the administrator, that person? What you're asking, or?
no, I'm just bringing up that point, that it's not all, we're looking only at the mayor, and there's more involved than just the mayor, as far as this whole procedure goes.
Right.
So the council would be, I would think, be encouraging the mayor to keep moving and doing what they're supposed
The
to.
council can't stall anything.
No, I'm looking at the council to push Which things, again,
You know, I'm an incrementalist.
Well,
I can't think of anything. I'm far more concerned about things that aren't being discussed right now. And I'm now added a manager, administrator to the city.
I've seen some,
I mean, but there's other places.
I didn't have it initially, or
well, not all the ones that were, but like, you know, some of the other, is it like the Whitehall, or not like our Whitehall, but there are a couple others that I saw, and had some things.
I think everything that said is great in terms of what it's spelled out, but you know, you may get a new mayor here. And then you new mayor, they're gonna want to hire a manager right away.
Especially if they're making $6,000 a week.
Well, we don't know that.
It's on the budget.
alright, so does somebody have the bandwidth in the next week, because we don't meet this Sunday, in the next week to try to track down some charters that have spoken things? I've glanced at it, but I have not done.
Oh,
We could give the mayor 60 days to hire an administrator.
Here's that's going on there.
Yeah, I'll let you know what municipalities I've looked at, so that you don't look at them.
actually, I think that's a completely reasonable suggestion.
No, I mean, we're still looking for things that need to happen at a later time, I'm not.
I used the word 60.
Is there anything from OVEX that stalled it out and they did it? I mean,
There was the,
here we go, we got it right there. What did they say?
hold on.
Our little guy who sits there.
I think she has a.
You know,
Thank you.
yeah.
Sure. The succession, all the successions I saw, like from village to city, it's not.
This is just continuing to present employees, effective the charter and existing offices. And then that's the end of it. It's not helpful.
And maybe you don't have to. Maybe it's the fact that you now have a manager. School needs to get hired. Maybe you and you were right. Maybe we don't spell it out except to say by the state, everything has to be done. And if you don't hire a manager within 60 days, then the council hires the manager.
That's not, I mean, they both hired together.
I mean, we already have,
I don't want to do one.
we already have things in place for how to hire a manager and how to replace the manager. That,
Didn't we say that though, for if the mayor didn't hire them within a certain time already or something?
I don't know,
Yes.
that's really,
Is it word that the
Possible.
mayor's not going to hire somebody? Is that a big word?
Yeah, really, what is this?
I don't know.
I don't really, I mean.
I guess I never used the word.
Yeah, but didn't we require them to have a position description and everything, the manager or whatever? Yeah,
I
so.
found a new one recently, I should.
All right, so then somebody's gotta post it somewhere and advertise it, take some time.
The council will be, actually, making that job.
So Powell has transitional provisions. Effective date of charter amendment, this charter is adopted by a majority of persons, blah, 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 fiscal succession, continuance of ordinance, continuity of officers, transfer of records and property. No, I guess there is not a step-by-step
No.
how to get it done.
So we just say figure it out as you go?
That
unless.
sounds like the scariest bit of everything we've done in this room, but.
Well,
Or like every new job I've ever had.
Right, I agree with you. Every new job I've ever had, which is either good or bad. It's out there.
There's a.
Usually I go through some training, I get some, like, you
Provide
know,
life-
where the bathrooms are, you know,
Provide
things like that.
Onboarding.
Onboarding, yeah.
That's still gonna occur,
Yes,
right?
yes.
Whether there's a timeline for it or not.
Sure.
I mean, you would just,
Right.
leave your office, all right, get to work.
There's one.
All right, so back to, this is the only thing we want to have a date or a trigger or a deadline on. The revoke the veto for mayor. Legislative rules about how many votes required are missing council person. That was your concern, right?
No, I would, it goes back, I don't know if anybody here has actually read the rules of council. I would recommend that you do, because they really need to be rewritten, and it'll be a big job, because they're constantly talking about, the Ohio Revised Code says to do this, and Ohio Revised, and now they need to look at the charter and see where is it that they say, you know, the
So what
charter
thing-
says this. and that.
So what thing are you thinking you attached a deadline or a date? I guess
Well,
that's where I'm
it-
confused.
Since by tradition and possibly ORC, they adopt rules of council to go into effect January 1 of the year that council will be doing business. So it's probably something that the charter passes, and it sounds like they already know they're going to need to do this. They need to start working on those rules, even if they had a slightly different start date for
So they just keep the same rules, and just instead of referring to the Ohio Revised Code, refer to charter.
It's gonna be a lot of editing, but it's going to keep it informed.
So you're saying that you think that the normal date of first meeting of council to approve those rules is too soon?
No, I don't.
Or it should
No.
stay the same, so that it
I
has
should
been?
stay the same, and they should, yeah. And then they'll find out which things they might want to delay on, but, you know, they'll appoint the council president, who now, it was going to be the mayor pro tem, and do the same thing.
I think that this is actually important so that council members have an understanding of what has changed. This forces council members to read the charter and understand how things are different.
They can reach out to their,
So,
the chair and the questions for at least a couple of years, right?
I mean, I don't know how to answer this, sure, I'll live here for a while.
Maybe you should run for council and then.
You know, I'm gonna break. So we have about 10 minutes left, so those are like the things to find. Wanting, find what the trigger date or deadline is, the only things we want to have. Somebody, Deb and Pam, volunteered to do some research to see if there's any charters that have specific transitions and what things we might not be thinking of. Sid had a question.
So I just had a comment, if I keep going. It seems to me that the sooner that seventh person is appointed, the sooner the ball gets rolling. And so maybe if you want any deadlines, it would be there.
The first meeting.
Yeah. Once you get the seventh guy, then the mayor's thing is quicker to transfer. Seventh, yeah.
Writing rules of council and starting the process to appoint the seventh council member need to have same deadline.
Are there any concerns with hiring the administrator or anything of that nature? We don't have to know what the answer is, but are there any concerns as far as attaching the deadline or constraints of that? No? Okay, that's fine, I just want to put it out there, that's what you
I mean, you know, I'm going to point to put a deadline.
do. Oh, then ask.
Yeah.
And then the other thing, I guess, is the longer it takes to appoint the administrator, the busier the mayor's going to be.
That's true. All right. There is soup this Saturday. That's, you guys have action items, Dick has an action item.
Oh, you're gonna miss the best too.
I know.
We'll send you pictures.
I know, I'm there.
So you're making the soup, are you?
I'm in two, and, you know,
And then Kim Foley still owes us information. I forgot about that.
I got a quick update for 1 minute. I talked to Pauline Keith today, I took the Johnstown, charter, showed her what they sent out to their people. She agreed that it doesn't need to be that heavy, paper and those types of things. She's gonna look at it and give us an idea of what it would cost to get it printed. She's also gonna check to see if the village has, not NPCA, but if the village has, for
even though they're poorly attended, when will the next community meeting be scheduled?
It's gonna be super.
Can I suggest that we, yeah, I almost feel like at this point we should be done, right? And present to people what it is.
No, that's fine with me. I'm not suggesting that we try to squeeze one in before we're done, but, yeah. And here's, I guess, what I should have asked, which is what I really wanted to know, are we gonna have this meeting after we have nailed the charter?
We can have.
Or at least submit it.
We don't make it a mail call.
Well, we discussed the political path too, in the last time.
Yeah, that was supposed to be discussed.
Yeah, we're not supposed to talk about that.
What, community garden?
Well,
Yeah, we'll talk.
I mean,
Yeah, find my glass of wine.
that'll be our push.
All right.
Dinner.
Okay. Anything else? Questions, comments, concerns, things we didn't touch on that you wanted to in this meeting? Burning questions in mind?
Evan, how did we do? On the Evan scale, how did we do?
This is great.
Alright, that's awesome. Because that's what I'm shooting for here.
How quickly we get through the allotted things and how much time we spend agreeing with each other.
I am going to call this the Evan methodology. Discuss once,
Move to adjourn.
never again.
Second?
I had that question about the 25th, meeting minutes.
Oh, stop.
Wow.